Come along, children. Now we're going to have a little music.
Yo, what is up, guys? Welcome to First Cut. This is our review of The Mandalorian and Grogu. We got a chance to check this movie out just like you guys, and we are here to break it down. RB3. We saw this in the IMAX screening on day one. At the same time the premiere was going on, we had the first reactions to this movie, which I think is super exciting because we get to see what everyone was feeling after the movie. But RB3, the most important is you. What did you think overall of The Mandalorian and Grogu?
Yeah, well, I don't know if I'm the most important. I'm probably the least important person to speak on this matter. And I also say I don't know. Hopefully, if you have seen it already, let us know. We might be putting out this review kind of early, so hopefully we're doing this as a not we're doing this one as a non-spoiler review. Stay tapped in for our spoiler review, which is going to come later in the week. That one we're going to go more in depth with. But overall thoughts is on this film. I liked it. I enjoyed it. It was decent journey, a decent ride through the Star Wars universe, decent effects, decent kind of costumes and visuals, and they did things that were fairly okay. So that's where it was all right. It was all right.
Yeah, I agree. It was all right. It was fun. There were some cool action scenes that actually were genuinely good. There were a lot of action scenes, to be honest. I think they could have done a little less with them. But at the same time, the ones that really stood out to me. And I was feeling like the intensity of it and the fact that Mandalorian is already a developed character in the sense that you want to cheer for him, you root for him. As fans of the show, as people who have seen the show at least, I think you will enjoy this movie. It's that kind of movie for the fans of the show. As if you're not a fan of the show, I don't think it's gonna necessarily work. And I do feel like it's missing that grand epic feel of a Star Wars movie. I say what you will about any Star Wars movie, but I think all of them bring something special and grand and cool in every single one, I think. And I feel like this one might be the only one that doesn't feel that way, and that you can kind of feel like it is kind of like a slightly bigger budget episode or episodes of The Mandalorian.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what I said in my tweet, right? This movie and my tweet, by the way, we did our out of theater reactions when we first saw the movie last week. My tweet was, "Hey, look, does it beat the TV movie allegations? Not necessarily, but it's a big budget episode for sure. But in terms of the structure, the dialogue, and this is me freestyling now. Structure, dialogue wise, pacing wise, it's very episodic. Feels like you're binging about 6 episodes of the Mandalorian TV show, and including, they have they have one episode that's like this subplot. There's almost a point halfway through the movie, you almost kind of look over. It's like, yo, did it just end? Like, is it over? And it's like, no, it's not over. And then there's a even like kind of almost like a tiny little mini Baby Yoda episode kind of in there as well. So it's like, yeah, you could definitely feel the episodic structure. It definitely doesn't elevate above the TV structure in terms of writing wise, but the budgets, the effects, you know, they do serviceable work. The cool thing is that a lot of it is practical. They do have some really cool practical elements, like I think there's that one planet, was it Sakar or
Shikari.
Sakari, that they actually built practically, which is really exciting. Of course, they are back with using them LED light volume things that look great. The CGI looks decent on a lot of the characters. Zeb looked pretty good, like photorealistic wise. The HUDs, they looked a little cringy, but that's how they're supposed to look. And then even in the mechanical elements, like the AT-ATs and stuff like that, they use stop motion, which I think is actually done by Star Wars OG. Let me double check who actually did the stop motion on that. But yeah, it technically wise, really good. Surface level elsewhere.
Yeah, technically I agree. It's really good, but it's also still I mean, again, if you've seen the show, it still feels like it's a part of the show. Like it's another, like it's a redesigned set from the show, which to me was kind of like disappointing because again, I do want something slightly different. If I'm seeing a Star Wars movie, I want it to feel different. And it felt like, again, a couple episodes of The Mandalorian, which is something that to me is a negative because I still feel like the bar of a Star Wars movie should be a little higher. It should be a little bit more, and I'm not saying necessarily it has to be so much money that you have to spend on it, but it should be at least a little bit special. And I think when you're focusing on really cool stuff like the puppeteering, the stop motion, all that stuff, and the action scenes, and you forget about any kind of story or any kind of character arc, character development, or just characters in general. Is there a character in this movie? Considering that, Din is just, go from A to B. I gotta go here. Cool.
Yeah.
I gotta go there. It's not quite, there's not really a character for you to latch on to besides maybe Grogu, who again is just he plays a little bit more into the cuteness factor, which is fine, but it doesn't work itself into being a movie. It didn't feel like a movie to me. It felt like, again, a couple episodes put together. Even the three-act structure felt off. Like you never knew when it was like, is this second act? What is the third act starting? Like, what is going on? They just kind of mixed like 5, 6 episodes into one act and then the other act, and it did feel a little disjointed and not quite like a movie. I
Yeah.
literally felt like I was watching like season 4 Mandalorian binged.
Yeah, no, literally, and that's the down part. That's the kind of unfortunate side of it being a TV adaptation, is that it's never going to escape those levels of expectations, and we lean right into them. They don't do any better. By the way, the legendary guy who did the puppeteering for the stop motion stuff was actually Phil Tippett. Phil Tippett. So if you're familiar with ILM history,
Hmm.
he was one of the guys who was part of the original Star Wars trilogy, and then he kind of got phased out when the push towards digital kind of came back. So, this movie has a good mixture of practical production and digital production, which again, on one side, kind of makes it look really good. On the other hand, see the limitations a little bit. Kind of almost looks a little cheaper than some other Star Wars movies, and I think we both love the sequel trilogy, and I don't love Rise of Skywalker as much. I know you're a bigger Rise of Skywalker fan, but I will say Rise of Skywalker and Solo and Rogue One and a lot of the other Star Wars movies, they do feel like films, like epic, high stakes, super eventful pieces of cinema, even just to the opening weekend crowd. There's just a different hum, you know what I'm saying? This one, it felt like they went with the safe choice. They did the safe choice. They did it really well. They shot it for IMAX, forged for IMAX. They built extra tall LED volumes to film a lot of this stuff. So they're doing the right things. I just don't know if it was necessarily for the most exciting story.
I agree, and I also feel like, I mean, I don't want to be so negative, but whatever, we're on a run here being negative.
Right.
It does, you can see the difference, RB3. You nailed it. Say what you will of Rise of Skywalker. A lot of people hate that movie, but it looks way better than this movie. Most of the stuff in Rise of Skywalker looks way better. And then, like you mentioned before, even movies that are not considered to be Skywalker saga movies, like Rogue One and Solo, are considerably, you can see the quality in there. There's quality in direction, there's quality in set production, there's quality it all around. Like I'm saying, I do feel like there is a bar that Star Wars has always had in every single one of its movies that sets it apart from anything we've seen in TV before, including The Mandalorian. And to me, this was like 30% more Mandalorian. Like a slightly bigger budget episode of Mandalorian, which to me is like, I don't know. I wanted it to be a little more. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it definitely could have been a little bit more. Um, they definitely had some, you know, they went with John Favreau, who is not a very stylistic director, and who, of course, is the architect of the Mandalorian TV show. So it makes sense you bring him on board. He does Iron Man, but that's the thing though. Iron Man is it's a very great film. It's maybe arguably MCU's best, but it's partially the reason why it's great is because it's divorced from like being overly stylized, and it's much more of a Robert Downey piece. Same thing with his, with his early films that he did with Vince Vaughn. What was that one called?
Chef.
Chef.
Oh no.
Chef was 2014. Chef is great. I
Yeah, my
love
bad.
Chef. But he
Uh,
did one of them old ones with Vince Vaughn way back in the day. Oh man, why is it escaping me? Why is it escaping me? I'm trying to go right now. Okay, I can't remember. But anyway, like again, like very actor led. He's a very actor led kind of guy, and kind of doesn't go super crazy with the camera and the cinema effects, which is cool. With something like Mandalorian and Grogu, though, we don't really see a lot of acting per se, right? Like we don't see a lot of Pedro Pascal like doing the performance. And shout out to the other performers who do. I think Brandon Welch is the guy who does the walking around, or
Brendan Wayne.
Brandon Wynn. Okay, he does the walking around, and they have another guy who does the stunts too.
So it's Brendan Wayne and Lateef Crowder.
Okay. They're doing the heavy work. We don't see a lot of course, by nature of the character, we don't see a lot of Pedro. Mostly a voice performance for the most part. You see in the trailer, we see a tiny bit of him, but yeah, I mean, it's a very it's not an emotional kind of movie. It's really more of a vibe kind of movie. It's more of a vibe kind of movie. If you like the vibe of the show, if you like the vibe of being in the Star Wars universe, even without feeling like the universe is at stake, or there's some big planet that's about to be blown up. There's literally none of that. Like, it's an episode. I know people are asking in the comments of our at the theater reaction, do you need to watch the show? I would argue you don't even need to watch the Mandalorian show. Like, honestly, it's so divorced from any kind of through line, any kind of anything. It's just, this is so standalone. It's like borderline pointless. But like, that sounds okay. This sounds really bad, but like, it just doesn't have, it's not trying to do some overarching thing. Like, there can be a sequel. There doesn't have to be. I know they're talking about doing the Ahsoka thing. That'd be great too. But then, like, this is very much just like a one note kind of film. If you like that one note, you'll like it. I thought it was okay, but I could see people really not vibing with that.
Yeah, I do feel like you don't have to have seen The Mandalorian. I agree with that. But at the same time, I do feel like it's made for the Mandalorian fans. Like, I think the people who will enjoy it the most, who will be like, this was great, it was awesome. I think those people are going to be hardcore Mandalorian fans. Like, people who are caught up on the Book of Boba Fett and know who those Hutts are because they've seen them before in that episode, or any kind of little story arc that's been there before. I do feel like it's made for those people. There's a
Mm.
couple scenes in here that features certain moments in battles that were also callbacks to just hardcore Star Wars fans, which again is cool, but it's not gonna. I just don't think it's gonna move film fans, in my opinion. But then again, I might be wrong because I do feel like the world we live in now, people like movies and dislike movies that I don't understand. But at the same time, there's not a lot to hate on at the same because there's still cool action sequences and a fun time in general. So I don't want to be like saying it's necessarily a terrible or bad in any way. It's just, I guess the best word is disappointing, not quite reaching the level that I thought it would. So yeah, that's kind of my overall thoughts on it.
Yeah, that's the perfect way to put it. Not bad. It's not great. It's a good film and very serviceable. Will do the job. It's funny. We talked about this during the because we hung out at Scum and Villainy a little bit afterwards with some creators, and this movie has a very interesting way that it could appeal to both little kids or like really really old people. Like, there's a whole segment that's like basically dedicated to like, you should take care of the elders, like. And I think this is the kind of rhythm that this movie is on. It's not really trying to go for us Gen Z or millennials. It's fast thinking, fast paced, uncut gems. Even like I said, Rogue One or Rise of Skywalker is an incredibly fast moving film. Last Jedi is an incredibly fast moving film, regardless of what you think of the pacing. This is not a fast film at all. You definitely feel the time, you feel the length. But it feels that way because it's like you're you're binging a show. Like, it feels like you're just going through episode after episode all in one sitting, which is cool. One more thing about the IMAX. Oh, sorry, two more compliments real quick. The IMAX stuff was cool. They did have an extended amount of time. I think it was 53 minutes of IMAX footage. That was good, and it didn't cheap out on that stuff. It was in fight scenes. They were strategic in how they used it, and outside of the ships or like in space versus inside of the ship was more of the contained aspect ratio, creative with the aspect ratio choices. And again, you already know the GOAT. I call him the GOAT already. I don't care. You know, y'all may say too young, but Ludwig Göransson to me is the GOAT of music composition. And this one, he proves it yet again. He took what would have been a normally mundane score. And in the beginning, I was like, yo, they're just going to recycle his score again. And Loki was kind of feeling like that for a minute. But we hit that again, was that Sakari planet. And then we start getting a little bit of some hip hop, a little bit of some vibes going there. I like that.
As soon as we'll get into it more in the spoiler review, I think. But as soon as we hit Shikari, you're right. You're like, oh. You hear the boom claps, literally, like the claps. I was like, all right, we're back. Yeah, definitely the highlight of the film, in my opinion, is Ludwig. And what he does with the score. Some really cool stuff for sure. But either way, guys, those were our thoughts on The Mandalorian and Grogu. Let us know when you're going to check this out, if you're going to check it out in IMAX. And check us back here when we do our spoiler review. RB3, where can everyone find you, man?
You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Director RB3.
And you can find me at Squad Leader Ace. Guys, make sure you subscribe to First Cut if you haven't done so already. But for the First Cut crew, we're going to be peacing out. So peace, deuces.
Getting at me equals a bloodbath. You do the math, take you out the equation. This ain't funny, so don't you